Let me fly a concept by you real quick. Off-brand Sweeney Todd management sim. Or how about Sweeney Todd if the barber was a tailor and rather than a musical, it was a restaurant management game. Intrigued yet? Then you're likely to catch some interest in Ravenous Devils. Though careful what you wish for because the quirky and dark concept leans pretty heavily into both, and can be pretty damn dark with a hefty pile of gruesome. But alright, let's back up a second. What is Ravenous Devils? You play as Percival and Hildred, a loving husband and wife in the late 1800s who just recently bought a 3-story shop, plus basement, in the heart of London after they had to run away from their former home in some haste due to their business being slightly shady. Him being a tailor and her being a baker, the couple has found the prices of goods are far too high these days to make a reasonable and lawful profit, and discovered a rather ingenious solution. See, Percival will kill random patrons of his shop, strip the clothes from their body to repurpose them into his own custom outfits, then drop the corpse down a chute so Hildred may butcher the body and create numerous meat pies and other bloody good pastries to sell to unsuspecting customers. I'm sorry, did I say ingenious? I meant disturbingly psychotic. And you are with them through every step of the process, coordinating their actions from the moment he sticks scissors into another victim's throat to the moment she sets out the latest tray of pastries, with every action in between. The game sets its story to a quirky backdrop, but there's very little amusing or quirky about this couple if you take away the quaint music or Hildred's bubbly, optimistic voice, a stark contrast to Percival's almost comical rasp. This is not a pleasant story in a pleasant place with pleasant people. This representation of London is dirty and run down, where you can practically feel the disease flowing through the streets, and Percival and Hildred are not nice people. And I don't mean that just because they're vicious murderers. Full of a barely contained narcissistic rage which often has them snapping at others, and even each other, when they take the moment to not keep up appearances. This is not a nice world to live in. All the worse when a mysterious patron contacts them, detailing knowledge over what they've done and requesting a specialized meal to indulge his own horrific urges. The story likes to play up appearances just like the couple, but underneath it all there is extremely little good or loving in their lives. All this without talking about gameplay. As mentioned, Ravenous Devils is a store management title, and to that purpose the game is middling. Within an oversaturated genre, there isn't much which stands out here other than the dark concept itself. You scroll through each of the 4 stories to complete tasks as required in each. Days are split between working hours and after work. During working hours, you manage and try to keep up with customers. After work, you are given any story sequence which might apply, purchase any upgrades, and prepare your shops for the next day. Percival is under your control when looking to the top 2, Hildred the bottom 2. Neither character can move to the other's slice of paradise, barring a story cutscene. For Percival, things are pretty static. A customer comes in and buys an outfit if one is available. Every so often, unless an occasional glitch happens to occur which secretly stops this, somebody comes in to be fitted. Percival is given the option to kill them. An update which occurred after my playthrough of this title added in a heat functionality where killing someone could generate heat for his shop, at which time an investigator may randomly pop in and take a look, which means you are in a rush to hurry and clear the body and wipe up the mess. If not to allow room for another victim to enter, then so you aren't caught red-handed and suffer a premature game over. Percival will strip the clothes from the victim, load the body into a chute, and mop up the mess. To run his shop, he is tasked with tailoring the discarded clothes and hanging them on mannequins you can buy increasingly more of. You can buy a few simple upgrades for Percival, allowing him to sew faster, recover more clothes, and set out more mannequins, but for the most part, he is pretty straightforward and requires little management. Later in the game, you can unlock the greenhouse upstairs, which will mostly be utilized outside of working hours. Here he can grow various vegetables for Hildred, utilizing, you guessed it, corpses as fertilizer. gardening and sending down goods for his lovely wife to use in her recipes. There's also a fun little cameo here, which is an amusing addition which stands in contrast to the tone of much of the rest of the game, though requires, fittingly, even more corpses to view. It also holds a cooler of sorts for, well, we'll swing back around to that. Hildred and her bakery is the other side of this, and which will gather most of the player's attention, if not for the fact that it's the most graphic and disturbing, then for the fact that running Hildred's bakery is far more time-consuming, to the point where you can eventually upgrade to allow a server to handle the shop side of things, and you may still feel hard-pressed to keep up. As Percival supplies the bodies, Hildred is tasked with carrying them to various meat stations to make from them either ground beef, sausages, or steaks, the last of which is gruesome to watch. With these, the vegetables Percival supplies via dumbwaiter and a bit of flour, Hildred prepares all this with gusto, tosses the meal into an oven, after which she'll bring it upstairs to set onto a serving platter or onto a table of an ordering guest. Here's where you'll feel the most rushed, trying to keep up with the daily grind and prepare for the day ahead as the business quickly becomes popular. Keep customers waiting too long and they'll pay less, so every second counts, and just waiting for Hildred to walk across the room or open the oven or even set down a platter can begin to feel tediously slow in the constant rush. Fortunately, you can buy a barrel of gin to keep customers happier and, as mentioned, a server can take care of upstairs so you can focus Hildred on the press downstairs. Most of the game's upgrades will focus on Hildred, on opening up new sections of her shop such as dining tables, another platter, more ovens, more and better methods of meat processing, and, of course, more recipes. Some are worth more than others, but are also more costly to prepare. Something which requires 3 kinds of meat will be suitably expensive, but also require a lot more bodies to maintain. Eventually, you can also adopt a cat, whose caught mice will be a lifesaver to serve up for a premium. Unfortunately, for as much as tasks advance for Hildred, they never really become more interesting. You're given more options, but the press and difficulty remains mostly static throughout. And since this is where you'll be spending most of the game, it means things start to become a little tedious by the end. The tedium is interrupted by a thin series of stories which are pretty hit or miss. Upon their opening up their shop, they are written a letter by an admirer who wishes to indulge in a more personalized meal. He will send out a few acquaintances over the following days with the expectation for you to murder and prepare them for one final meal at the end, to which you will utilize the cold storage upstairs. The concept is alright, but rather boringly handled. Each of the characters has a fun little backstory to them, but rather than treating these characters like special encounters or even something of a boss fight which you must indulge and fulfill certain criteria in order to lure in, they're more simply given very padded out cutscenes. Emphasis on padded out, as many of these sequences can extend unnecessarily long to interrupt pacing. What's more, some of these side stories are fully unnecessary. For instance, there's a dying woman who frequently visits at the start and whose story goes a whole lot of nowhere. More annoyingly is a kid whose mother disappeared after visiting Percival and Hildred takes some pity on. I wouldn't mind one-off encounters like that, but then the kid keeps coming back in this weird motherly side story which, very annoyingly and without warning, turns into Hildred sending the kid away with all the money you've been saving up. Great time for the story to finally interfere with the gameplay. Ultimately, Ravenous Devils is a bit of a cheap thrill. If you're into body horror, have some darker tastes, or didn't get enough Sweeney Todd, maybe you'll find something to indulge in here. Beware, though, just how dark this is, as the quirky humor truly does only run skin deep. As a store sim, this is competent, but there's honestly far better versions of this. This is a title which is mostly about the concept, and if that concept holds interest, then you'll likely find some measure of entertainment, at least for a couple of hours.